I don't know how I'm going to survive the next couple months. I believe, it's my opinion, that's how we see these people. Hey guys, hope you're having a great day today. My name is Daniel, and in this video, I wanted to share with you some thoughts that I have on surviving through a slow season in your dumpster rental business. These are some practical tips and ideas of what I have been doing, what I have done before, what I'm currently doing again during this slow season in the slower winter months specifically. And I just wanted to give you some thoughts to really address this issue of what does really happen and what can you do to survive and hopefully thrive even through a slower season in the dumpster rental business game. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So if you are a brand new dumpster rental business owner, or whether you've gotten slowly into it, you're a couple of years into this business like myself, going into the slow season might be a little daunting, might be a little scary. And the what if, or the unknown of the slow season, will you have any rentals at all from residential customers? Is everything going to dry up? Are you going to be able to pay your bills? We see a lot of people, even on the Facebook groups, talk about selling their equipment now in the slower season because they're not able to afford the payment. They don't have a budget in place. They don't have anything really put together. And so they can't survive the slow season in their dumpster rental business. And so I'm going to be sharing with you some thoughts here of what I have done already and I'm currently doing now as I'm learning and growing in this business, and how maybe you can prevent yourself from going underneath so where you can survive through the slow season and see the process of how this kind of falls together. So it may be a little scary. You might be feeling unprepared going into a slow season, not really knowing what's going to happen. Are you going to make it out through the other side, still able to operate, or are you going to be in crazy debt? What's going to happen throughout these winter slower months? So depending on your market, things may look different for you, but my experience has been going from spring cleaning, going up and up and up, and there's been some hills and valleys in between. But really, up until November, December, things were really going well. I was getting a lot of rentals. I was getting a lot of repeat business, people doing things right before winter season, before snow actually hit the ground, and things were going fairly well. And then basically, the floor dropped out from underneath me financially, and the rentals just disappeared. And so oftentimes, it's not a matter of not getting any customers whatsoever. It's a matter of you're expecting things to continue how they have been, and you might anticipate, well, it might drop off a bit, but who knows? Well, for me, it's a sharp decline. It's not a rising hill and a settling down curve. It was just a hard drop. And so for you and me in a dumpster rental business, anticipating those things, it might be a little hard to really gauge what does that look like. So if you are out spending money and maybe building your business in the bigger, busier season, for things to all of a sudden just drop off, it may catch you off guard. It might be something you're not necessarily prepared for. If you're still spending money as if you're in the busy season, if you're building and expanding in a slower season when maybe the name of the game is not building, expanding, it's really about cash flow. It's about maybe surviving and being able to take care of your bare minimum costs and really not as much playing offense, but rather playing defense in your business to make sure that all your bills are covered, that you're not going to have to sell pieces of equipment and completely get out of the game altogether, or really sabotage yourself for the next busier season. For us to succeed until the next busier season, the next year, whatever that may look like, we've got to make sure we survive today. You can't plan for 5, 10, 15 years down the road when you can't pay your bills right now. And so I think the spending, the outflow, the cash flow going out, you've got to shore that up. And oftentimes I think we don't get a notification in the mail. We don't get a text message. Hey, just so you know, you're about to lose like 75% of your business this next month. It can catch you off guard. And so for us as owners, we've got to anticipate these things. And if you're less than a year into this is all brand new material. But if you have been in the business for more than 1 year, even if you have a year under your belt and maybe people know you more in your area, you've got some repeat customers, you've got some maybe commercial accounts that you've been working with, fantastic. But understand things still are going to drop in the slower, maybe colder months. And so your cash flow, number one, has got to just go back to your fixed costs. You can't be spending as if you can count on the extra money to be coming in like you normally would in the busier season. In my opinion, you've got to make sure that you are not hemorrhaging money right out the door, and really be looking at, okay, well, I've got 1 year under my belt maybe. What did last December or last January or February look like? In my position right now, February in the last 2 years, which I only have 1 full month of actual dumpsters in February worth. So I can look back and see last January was higher than December, but last February was the lowest month in the whole 2-year period. And so anticipating, okay, well, February is not the time to be doing all these extra things and building and expanding in these other areas if cash flow is going to be a problem. So managing the outflow the time of the year, I think that's a critical thing. And if you're not able to survive today, it doesn't matter what you have planned for a couple years down the road or expanding, getting more dumpsters next year or the year after that. If you're not paying your bills and creditors are going to come after you, that's a problem. And so you've got to calibrate what your expenses are going to be and adjust that accordingly. Another thing that might catch you off guard if you're coming from the busier season and you're going into the slower season, that might kind of shock you, because when things are happening and you're in the busy season and you're not necessarily looking at the bigger picture. You're kind of zoomed in, scoped into managing everything that's going on day to day, because it's time to roll. This is time to make the money. This is the hot season. And so for you to come off from that and go into the cold, slower season, it might be a surprise to you of what your actual new budget is, because in the busier season, you might have expanded in some other areas. You might have added to your fixed cost of operating your business, and your budget to operate, it might have expanded. It might have grown to a larger number than what you thought it was before. It may have changed in this last year. So for you to take a hard look at, what are my actual numbers? What's my budget say I have to stay where I'm at? Or maybe if you need to, in some areas, cut a few things that may be unnecessary, for you to take a hard look at your budget and say, okay, if nothing else happens, I at least have to have this much money for the next 2, 3, 4 months just to survive, just for the business to survive, the entity of the business, not you getting a paycheck, or if you wanted to include that number as well, whatever that needs to be, that hard number that you must have, whatever you're including, understand that's your new budget. Things might have changed over the last year from your busier season. You might have added more subscriptions for your business as far as software or additional services, other things that might come into play. But at the bare minimum, what has to come in, unless you're going to be canceling accounts, selling dumpsters, doing things to limit your actual fixed costs, this is going to be maybe a head shaker. It might be a surprise to you from going from such a fast, quick-paced, busy season into a cold season where you're like, oh, whoa. Things dropped off the map. I'm not getting the income that I need. Where am I at? If nothing else, can I survive until the busy season again? Spring cleaning, when people are out renting dumpsters, doing more and more projects. What does this look like for me? You need to know your budget. Ideally, you know it all the time. You're keeping track of these things. But especially going into the slower season, things might have changed and you might be a little bit behind. I know for me, there have been some additional increases in my budget within the last year that, okay, I've got to account for this now. My new number I have to have, whether I get 10 dumpsters or 40 dumpsters rented out this month for me, I have to have this much money going out, or else I have to make hard decisions. I have to make changes in the business. So I think that's a thing that can catch people off guard. You're not really anticipating it. Oh, wow, my actual hard numbers that have to go, it is a larger number maybe than you anticipated or remembered from earlier in the last year maybe. So now going from the budget to what's actually in the bank accounts. What do you actually have? If you don't have any rentals come in for the next 2 months, can you survive? Looking at what you have built up in savings, I understand you got to spend money to make money. Money in the bank, even with the interest rates that are climbing, that's still not going to be more profitable than you taking a larger risk in your business and making things happen with buying more dumpsters or doing different things. The return on money in the bank is basically a joke. And I get that. However, if you're going into the slower season, if you're looking at this going, okay, well, I think I know what my budget is. It has increased from last year. And now I'm looking at, okay, well, worst case scenario, I don't get one single person, and I don't think this is probably going to happen for 99% of businesses already established out there. But looking at worst case scenario, if I don't get a single dumpster, can I pay all of my bills through January, through February, being colder? Is this even a possibility? I think that's a critical thing. And knowing what that cash is, that money in the bank, to be able to do that, if nothing else, if you have no real cash flow coming in and you're just going to be hemorrhaging money, do you have that savings built up? Looking into winter times, to the slower season, just trying to survive, especially being a slower, smaller operator, this is going to be something that might come to your mind. It might be a little scary. Whether you're willing to admit it to other people on Facebook when everybody else says they're rolling in the dough and, whatever, that's all bogus. Knock yourself out. If you're a smaller operator and you're just trying to survive, ideally you thrive and you build and expand and do things. With that comes, yes, slowing down the hemorrhaging of money going out. Yes, knowing your budget and dealing with that accordingly, but also having the money in the bank to survive. When you have a large season and then a very small season, we need to appropriately deal with this and know that we can get by. Otherwise, we're going to the casino and just gambling. Well, I hope customers come in. I have no money in the bank. I don't know how I'm going to survive the next couple months. I believe, it's my opinion, that's how we see these people putting their whole businesses up for sale, all of the equipment, and they're begging and hoping somebody gives them enough money to pay off their debts so that they're not completely in trouble across the board. Surviving a slow season, maybe even in our sketchy economy right now, it's more important than ever to make sure you do have the money in the bank, at least to survive through the winter, not to just watch all this money just sit there and not be able to expand and grow and build your business out. You've got to have enough money to survive. And so that comes from having the money already in the bank, whether there's customers that do reach out to you or not. My approach has been really since beginning of December. I was anticipating if I made no extra money through December, through January, through February, and really the beginning of March, when I think people's minds start to turn over into, okay, well, it's maybe still a little cold right now, but I am planning on getting things scheduled for a dumpster rental, for spring cleaning, getting this stuff figured out. And so you need to be able to survive through then. And if I made no money from December through February, can I do it? Can I make this work and survive and get on the other side of it without going in the red without going into bigger trouble, bigger debt, bigger problems? Can I get through there? Because I know it's only going to ramp up from there, anticipating nothing coming in at all and planning accordingly. That's where I'm at. That's my approach. You can do something differently. That's cool. But for me, worst case scenario, I hope for the best. I plan for the worst. And if the worst doesn't come, it's just bonus. I don't have to be in absolute torture. I don't have to be scared to death. Surviving through this, I'm planning for the absolute worst. Zero money coming in at all. And every time my phone rings or I get an email saying somebody booked a dumpster online, it's sweet. That's less money I need to worry about. That's less money I have to come up with. Fantastic. I'm going to be able to survive, and it gives me more confidence to go through that slower season. So you've got to have a savings built up going through a slow season to survive. If you haven't right now, do what you can. If you're starting to, in the future from this video, if you're planning on surviving through this business, you've got to anticipate, in my opinion, the worst case scenario, have as much money stacked up to get you through the slow season throughout the year, maybe pulling a little bit back each week, each month, to be able to set aside so that you know for sure, without a doubt, you will survive. And if you have even excess money at the end of the slow season, that's more money to put back into the business or to pay yourself back as a business owner, whatever that may look like. You've got to have some cash built up to be able to ride that slow storm out. And lastly, another thought I have for you, if you're a smaller operator, if you've got, less than 10 dumpsters or 6 dumpsters, something like that. I've got 4 of my own, 2 of my buddies that I'm able to rent out. We do that together. If that's the case, and you're a couple years into this, whatever that timeline looks like for you, if you're depending on all of your income from this business, depending on your numbers, it's going to be pretty scarce. Unless you are doing these previously listed ideas. The slow season is no joke. Like it's not here for enjoyment. This is a part of the business. It is what it is. And so, in my opinion, if you're depending on all of your money coming from this, you're going to have a rude awakening, and you need to adjust your mindset. For me, over the last 7 years, I've been in RV transport as a commercial independent contractor. My primary piece of income has come from that business, even while starting and building this up from nothing as a side hustle. For 2 years, I've been doing my full-time day job, which is really like 60 or 70 hours a week, and then doing dumpsters. Now, thankfully, the dumpster business has grown, and that's fantastic. But it's still not up to where I can fully depend on it for my primary piece of income. It's not there. And it is what it is. Like, my growth is not your growth. It's not somebody else's growth. It is what it is. And so because my RV transport day job has basically the carpet has been pulled out from underneath me, that much larger piece of income being grinding down to a halt, to like $0. I've taken 1 load in 4 months. I've had to make some adjustments as a smaller operator. I can't be paying myself and pulling money out of the business to pay myself even a small portion of what I need. The business needs to have, the business money in the bank needs to be for the business to survive, not for me to be paying my bills at home. The business entity itself must have that money. So what do I do as the owner? Like, the thing is, kind of in a circular thought, if the business goes down, then I have to pivot into a whole other job or business or something else, start selling things off. Or if the business survives, but I don't, what good is the business surviving if I lose my house? If I lose some, equipment or other things like that, that doesn't make sense. So if you're a smaller operator, making sure that you do have backup plans, you have other side businesses or a side hustle or other supplemental incomes in your position, in your wheelhouse. This has always been a side hustle up until this point. It's been a growing side hustle, and that's very nice. However, it's not how I'm living. And up until RV Transport basically came to a grinding halt, that's what it's been. Right now, unfortunately, it has been, even though I'm barely paying myself, I've made the transition to making my full income from RV Transport to barely anything from dumpsters, riding this season out. And I've also added a bunch of other side gigs to it. I've mentioned this on my other channel for my RV Transport operation. During COVID, when the same thing happened, it came to a grinding halt, and I didn't even have a dumpster business. I did Grubhub, DoorDash, Roadie. I view it a whole bunch of side gigs that were flexible with my time to honestly make a pretty sizable side gig income to make things roll, to make things work, to plug some holes in the ship as we're riding this thing out. No shame here. I do not care if it looks sketchy or bad, or I'm not as big of an operation as think people perceive me to be. I do not care. What I care about is making things happen, taking care of my family, and surviving to get to the busier season and to keep it building and expanding and do things in the right order, in the right process. And so side gigs are a huge thing if you are trying to depend on this money for all of your income, or maybe you are balancing a whole other business or another job, something else. If things drop out, you need to have the next thing to go to have other options as you're building this stuff up. And so for me, even with some smaller side hustle jobs and things that I'm doing, knowing that RV Transport has dropped off the map for me, I am going into one of my other skill sets that I've already been trained in as a licensed pest control applicator. I've couple years experience doing that. I've dealt with a number of different infestations, not really wanting to do the reoccurring monthly maintenance sprays, but rather getting into full-blown pest infestations, and that being very profitable, very low overhead for a smaller operation. And so I'm actually planning, just sharing with you, I'm not starting another channel going into another business, I don't think, sharing all the pest control stuff. But as a part of this whole process, I'm going to be getting my taking both exams, the core and then the 7A pest management tests here in Indiana, and I'm going to be a licensed applicator here in Indiana and starting up a whole other business, but not a business that is going to sabotage the dumpsters. It can be used together. It can be put together and work very well because I can schedule my customers around my dumpsters, do dumpsters in the morning, do bugs in the afternoon, or share with them, hey, I'm actually not going to have availability until whenever. But the idea of adding in another stream of income with the skills that I already have, with a low overhead to jump into the business. I already have the skills to do it. I know how to run a business. I know how to advertise to a certain degree. And I think if nothing else, it can be just an additional smaller stream of income with not much risk at all. So maybe there's some other tools or skills that you have that you could jump into, that you could balance throughout the year. Maybe, of course, dumpsters has a much faster, heavier season, springtime, summertime, and then it slowly drops off during the fall time. But maybe you can do bugs during then, and then even in the wintertime, where do bugs go? At least for me, where do bugs go in the colder months? Many of them try to come inside the home. Depending on what the pest is, I'm going to be able to capitalize with the highs and the lows of the dumpsters. They can literally offset each other to where I can personally survive myself, maybe more once I get this thing going, for the long-term picture, for the bugs through the slower months in the winter, and then dumpsters, offset in these summer months. So for me, that's what it works out to be, what I'm planning on doing. This is not something that I'm telling everybody you should get into pest control, but you really need to know what you're doing. But this is my advice to you. Get a side hustle, add multiple ones that don't take a whole lot of cash flow, that you can work around the schedule, that makes sense for you, and that it's not going to be such a reach far, far away. Also, just for a pro tip or whatever you want to say, I'm going to be actually sharing with my customers in the future, now that I'll be licensed in Indiana. I'm going to share, hey, I know you got done, taking care of a whole lot of clutter in your dumpsters. I'm willing to give you a discount, additional, price for my pest control services if you were in need of that. If they're cleaning out a hoarder house, if they're doing other things, this is a 1-2 punch for me to add on additional services underneath my other business to be able to compound that. So that's something I'm going to be looking at doing. Maybe there's some other services you could do that could add, benefit to your dumpster rental business. Whatever that may be for you, let me know down in the comments below. This is only to be an encouragement and help to you, looking at surviving through the winter months, the slow season. You've got to be able to eat. You've got to be able to live indoors, do what you need to do as a person, but also the business. And so how do we balance this? How do we juggle this? And I think these things that I've slowly learned over time and I'm implementing now, it's really set me off for success, surviving through the winter season. And ultimately, as I keep building and expanding and getting more cash flow coming in, it's not going to ever be really much of a thought to be able to survive through winter, because I will have the money built up each winter season. I will have these other options at my disposal. I'm not going to be going, okay, well, everything was solely dependent upon one business and that slowed down. Now what do I do? Because I've got things. When one business dries up, I'm going to start another one, using the things at my disposal to make things work. Let me know down in the comments below if this was a help to you. Subscribe, hit the like button if it was. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you have a great day today, guys. Stay safe and God bless.